Sorry.
We did it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Kate. My guest today is Michelle McGlade from Evolutionize Media. Thanks for being here today, Michelle.
I'm thrilled that we're back.
I know this is take two.
Take two.
Yes, we did try to do this yesterday, and we had massive technical difficulties. I would take responsibility, but they were beyond my control. So hopefully today is going to be spot on. Let's see. We already have about 10 people just here. So that's pretty cool. And just for people who are making comments, I can't always see them. I can on LinkedIn. I can't on Facebook. So any questions that you ask, I'm trying to see. I will see them on LinkedIn. And I will try to see what's going on with Facebook as well. I'll glance at my phone, and feel free to pop any questions into the comments, and I will ask them as we go. Okay. So, Michelle, are you still there?
I am here.
Okay, great. So Michelle is a longtime coach, business coach. She's written a book. She's got her own podcasting network, and she's definitely a leadership expert. She's also the managing director of our Vermont eWomen Network chapter, of which I am a part. And she's also a podcast creator. And today she's going to be here to talk to us about virtual networking, which is, we seem to be doing a lot of that these days, don't we?
Oh my God. It's like the hottest topic, I think, because people are figuring out how to do this and make it work for them, while others of us are saying, we've been doing this for 10 years.
Exactly. So I wanted to start out today with, I like to jump right in. And I also want to just to say a shout out to people who are watching the replay. Thanks for joining us. But let's jump right in and get to the content. And so I wanted to start out with, what we're going to be talking about today are the key critical aspects of virtual networking. As we know, there's all kinds of networking. I mean, there's general networking, there's conference networking, there's business to business networking, there's, places like BNI or eWomen Network. And then of course, there's basically online networking. But I think that online virtual piece is a little bit more maybe vague for some people, and especially knowing how to do it in their business. So why don't we start there, and maybe you can help explain that for people.
That's such a good question. And I've even thought about this a little bit more, Kate, since we attempted to share yesterday. And, virtual networking is not really that different from just what you, the listener here, is thinking networking is. The only difference, if I go all the way back to my first job, is the fact that how you make the connection. I think that's where the difference lies, because even when I was 25, knocking on doors, but not literally, I was knocking on doors using my telephone, drumming up and looking for business in the telecommunications industry. And the initial way that I connected was what we would call virtually now, but it just meant that I didn't meet them in person. I made a connection before meeting them in person, and then created the opportunity to connect and hug them in person later. And that's what I think virtual networking really is at the core. It's just not being able to do it in person.
Exactly. So let's start off about you gave me some great talking points. Like, what does networking mean to people? What does networking mean for you?
Yeah, well, what I meant when we were kind of sharing that is I think first and foremost that networking can mean different things at different times. So the same for me, right? The same for you. So the key to making networking work for you is to understand what your goal is. Why are you trying to re-engage with people you haven't talked to in a couple years? Why are you trying to look and connect with new individuals? There's so many different reasons. It could be for some people, they're looking to get a promotion within their organization, right? They're looking to land a new dream job at a startup. Maybe there's a woman out there wanting to connect to get a corporate board seat, or just simply a new client. But there's a lot of different reasons. And I think that the key is for you to know what the goal is before you start reaching out to people.
Which is so true in all aspects of our business. And I would also make that point to go along with, like, who is your target audience?
Right.
And who is your target client even? Because, not every person is your client either. So it's a similar kind of thing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I think most people go, I'm going to network so I can get clients. But sometimes who you want to meet isn't always the client.
Absolutely. They could be the connector to meeting somebody who could be your great client. I also say too, if you don't mind me just kind of adding this in, is don't ever go into networking, no matter what you do, in person or virtual. Don't go into networking thinking you're going to make a transaction or you're going to make a sale. What you're really trying to do is just be human to human, and you're building a rapport.
Yeah.
So, that's really what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get up the LinkedIn thing because we're not frozen, but my comments are.
Well, that's okay. At least you and I we can
exactly. So if people are putting in comments, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. So anyway, thank you for that. But it is important to realize that when you go into it, and even from an energetic standpoint, I think, go into it with, like, wanting to get to know this person. It's not all about you, and it's not about getting the sale. It's about going and meeting people and wanting to help.
Yeah. And so, you're differentiating between actually a couple different things here, which I love, because now we're digging into a little bit more of the tactics. So,
right.
Of course, when you want to get out there and connect with people, what I'm saying is, you don't have endless amounts of time. That's the thing. You want to strategically connect with the right people. So understanding what you want from those connections is important. But of course, once you get into the opportunity, like if you and I were just connecting for the first time, my literal goal for our time together might just be to just sit back and learn as much as I can from you. Yeah.
And be a listener. Don't always be the talker.
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to remember too.
Yeah.
So also, let's go take it to another level. And I appreciate that you sent me some talking points, because even though I like to ask questions based on our conversation, it's always nice to kind of make sure we hit the high points.
Well, these are the things on my mind, so I figure they're on other people's minds, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. So you mentioned about, like, people need to let go of their limiting beliefs. Like, they need to open up their minds a little bit in ways maybe they hadn't imagined. So maybe we could give some people some ideas on that.
Yeah, I love that, because, sometimes we tell ourselves these stories. And I think right now, given the shift in the environment around us, I think it'd be really easy to start telling yourself a story that, oh, now that I can't, be in the office every day and stopping by the VP's office to get to know him a little bit better and let him know about him or her about my aspirations, now it's not going to be possible for me to build my career in the direction as quickly as I wanted it to. Or now that I can't go to, and meet and connect with individuals in person for coffee, et cetera, it's not going to be possible for me to convert them into a client. And I just want to give a shout out to the fact that is completely untrue. I mean, I've been doing this we don't need to say how many years. But you know, what I will say is I was always in sales and business development of some sort, and my clients were not locally in my area. And so I always had to be doing this. And so if it was possible 20 years ago, it is certainly possible now with all of the technological advances. And there's actually some advantages right now I see because of, one, the technology that we have available to us. Two, I don't know about you, Kate, but I've been able to network and connect with a lot more people because I'm not driving around.
Exactly.
I have more time.
Kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. Plus, I've always been able to do this, but for those people who hadn't been leveraging technology in this way, it's really opening up their world because they're able to now understand how they can make connections globally that they weren't, leveraging before.
Right.
Plus, I think that what I've found is people are more receptive right now than ever to having a virtual coffee,
Yeah, virtual coffee. Get that mug up there.
To having a virtual coffee. And I find the door is a little bit more open right now. I wanted to make sure we touched on this because I've heard some kind of negative speak about now it's not possible for me. And I just really encourage people to change the perspective because at the end of the day, business is business and relationships are relationships, and great businesses are built on great relationships. And that's
absolutely
been true from the beginning of time.
Yeah. And people want to do business with people.
Yeah.
It really is important. So the other thing that we discussed too is about like defining who your advocates are.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point. It can get missed sometimes when we're now deciding on who might be a good type of person to be connecting with. What is the goal? Why do I want to get out there? One of the places you can really leverage that gets, like I said, missed often are your champions.
Mm-hmm.
We all have champions. They could be in our family. They could be some of our best friends. They could be mentors or managers that we've worked with in the past, currently.
Right.
But it's a really great idea if you're thinking about getting out there or you're struggling to make the connections that you want. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's so much easier than you think. It's literally already in your pool. You just haven't tapped into your champions.
I love the way you say that. You haven't tapped into your champions. I've never heard you say that before, and I've known you a while. I love that one.
Okay, let's write that down real quick.
Yeah, let's write that down. Let's make a quick note of that. I love that.
And your champions, sure, they could be your best friend. They could be your mom or dad, but look for people also who are aligned to your values. That's usually who your champions are. And when they're aligned to your values and who you are, that means they have connections and access to more people like that. And they're willing, because they know you so well and they believe in you, they're willing to help facilitate or make that bridge to get you where you need to go.
And wouldn't it make sense then? Would you think it would be appropriate to have that conversation with your champion or your cheerleader and say, hey, if you are out and about, and we're out and about talking about one another's services, if it comes up and relevant, kind of not prepping them, but just making sure there's kind of an agreement.
Yeah. And well, that's the whole point, is usually your champion it would be just a no-brainer. They're naturally already talking about you. They already believe in you. They're so excited to tell the world about how amazing you are because they know you so well and it's so aligned. And I think the other thing, it's a little bit off topic here, but it's just something that popped into my mind. Because I feel like sometimes people feel rejected or they're not getting where they want to be or with the people they want to be. And
what do you mean by that? Feeling rejected by what?
By maybe the door isn't opening the way they would like it to, or someone who they thought was their champion isn't necessarily really helping and supporting them to get to the next place or where they want to go. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's two reasons for that. One is you're not asking clearly enough, so you need to go back to your goal. Mm-hmm. Or two, you just have to be okay with not everybody is a fit for you. And that's the part I wanted to say. And I didn't want to forget to say, even though it's a little off from where we were, but just remember, not everybody's a fit for you. Totally fine. Move on.
And same with the client thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of alignment with that. And I think it's important because I think a lot of times when people, especially if they're starting out or they've only been in business for a little while, especially even maybe right now, given where we're at with this whole COVID thing and business has maybe slowed down for some people. Don't be desperate to get anybody in just because you need to get them in, because that's still going to end up being somebody who's not the right fit, who could end up being a high maintenance client, or anything like that. And so both of those things kind of address, they go together.
Yeah. And I would like to add a little more color, since you opened that a little bit wider, is when you invite people in who really aren't aligned, I find that maybe you do it because you think, oh, they've just got access to all these people I want to know. But I feel like it never works out the way you want it to. And it ends up shining a shadow on your brand in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to shout out that ATN, our friend ATN, is on. So thanks for being here. And I think there's some people on Facebook. I had to stop watching Facebook because I actually think that my LinkedIn feed on my other monitor was actually glitching us out. As soon as I shut that off, it cleared up. So again, if anybody does put questions in and I'm not responding or Michelle's not answering them right now, it's I will answer them offline. And so we will definitely get to your questions. We may just not be able to address them on the video. And for that, I apologize. But this is where I need to hire a moderator.
The other thing I would encourage people to do is definitely share your questions. But if something's resonating for you, just saying, oh, that I've experienced that, or, me too, or yeah, and I would add this, Michelle and Kate,
yes,
because
absolutely.
that just adds the point of these types of engagements is to engage in conversation, not just for Kate and I, but with all of you. So
right. We want to be here to help you with networking. We want to be here to help you in your business. Also, the majority of people who watch these lives actually watch the replays.
Yeah.
And when they watch the replays, they can actually see the comments in the real time of the video. So if you have something to add or a question, and then we go back and answer it later, people are going to get all of that sort of in a nice, neat little package after the fact.
And I don't know if every presenter, facilitator, speaker feels like this, but I have a lot of fun when I'm done going back and reading the comments and then engaging in the conversation in an extended way. That's fun for me.
I do too. And speaking of connection, if any of you are watching, I would encourage you to connect with Michelle on LinkedIn. Certainly connect with me if you're not already, but certainly follow Michelle. And I'll just take a little pause here in our conversation. Michelle has created she has a business called Evolutionize Media, and she's created not only her own podcast, but she's created basically a podcast network. So why don't you just take a minute, Michelle, and kind of explain what that is, because I think people would also be interested in hearing your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been podcasting since 2015 and just really fell in love with the ability to uncover the story behind the story for entrepreneurs, leaders. And when I was coming back around to create my second show, it's called She's Talking Back. Mm-hmm. And no, it's called She's Talking Back. Sorry.
It's much better when you sing it.
It's sassy. Okay. But it's meant to really expose the layers, the deeper heart-centered stories of women in leadership and shine the light on their amazingness, but also maybe the, some of the self-doubt and things that we don't think women at those levels are experiencing, to help women know that they're not alone. And it's just been a fascinating journey to be able to see some of the commonalities among women in leadership today. But when I was creating the show, I really started to feel bubble up inside of me, wanting to not just do this for the women on my show, but to help other leaders to bring their voice out in the form of podcast. Mm-hmm. So Evolutionize Media is an organization that helps to align the strategy, development, and launch planning of podcasts for thought leaders, and of course, do the production for new and rebranded shows.
Great.
Yeah.
So some of you are hearing us use the term thought leader, and some people are not necessarily always familiar with that.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are a little more old school, you've heard the term certainly subject matter expert. So thought leader is sort of like today's version of that. But when you think about it from an online standpoint, because the majority of us who are speakers, authors, coaches, CEOs, all of us in a certain career or industry, we're positioning ourselves online on online channels, especially on a channel like LinkedIn, for example. And so the way we present ourselves there is to be seen as a go-to resource for you, that by the content we put out, by the questions we answer, by the questions we ask, we're building something there so that you think of that person as a go-to person who really knows, what they're talking about and who can answer questions and can provide content that you'd be interested in seeing. So thought leader is just that. It's you are an expert in your field. You have the expertise and you have the knowledge.
I have a question for you, Kate, because I'm surprised that actually slipped out of my mouth because it's not my favorite word.
It's not mine either, but I still use it though, because it is visual. It gives a little bit of a visual when you think of it.
Right. Yeah.
But go ahead. But did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to know because it's not my favorite word, but I don't know that I've come up with one that's better. That is like, I don't know that there's a better phrase yet, but you described it perfectly. Yeah.
So let's get back to talking about our virtual networking.
Okay.
So we talked about like defining who your champions are, your advocates, or I use the term cheerleaders. I mean, I have a lot of cheerleaders and you're one of them. And I thank you for that. Yeah. ATN, who's on, is certainly a cheerleader for both of us in our own respective ways. But let's talk about the power in partners.
Yeah. And this is something I feel like I've really honed in on in the last few years. And maybe it is the virtual networking that has pushed me in this direction. But I've not had a challenge necessarily reaching out and connecting with people. But I found that I maybe did too much of that and didn't see the return on my investment. And I'm mentioning this because I'm sure listeners have felt the same way. And what I've come to learn is that less is more and deeper is better. And so when I think about developing relationships with key players who have access in some way, shape, or form to potential clients and turning them into cheerleaders or champions. Okay. So it's a strategic way. If you don't have enough champions, or you don't have your champions don't have access to a lot of the types of people you would like access to because you're shifting potentially.
Right.
This is a great way, because a lot of people, what I see them do is they go out, they network and connect and tell everybody constantly what type of client they need. Instead, what would be a much better strategy and a better use of your time is to identify people who can get you the access. So one really simple example is if you are someone who cleans houses, you definitely are looking for clients who want their house cleaned, which is potentially me. But if you just run around saying, I'm looking to connect with people who want their house cleaned, that could take you a lot longer than simply developing some partners who have access to homeowners as well and referring business to one another. So who else has access to homeowners? People who do closet and organization type of work, handymen, lawn care services. Maybe you have a couple more to add in there, Kate, but that would just be a simple example of, instead of thinking about, I need to connect with clients, go one level up and start developing relationships. This is a very strategic way to spend your time with the people who might have access to the people that will be hiring you.
So access, you mean like being a connector, essentially?
Yeah. And then take it a step deeper. Don't just connect with them. Again, this is about, when I say partners, I mean like developing deep relationships with them. So could you imagine if you had 25 people? Give me an idea, Kate, of somebody who has access to people that could be your potential clients.
You mean the type of person?
No. So let's say you do a lot of work on a LinkedIn profile with executives. Who has a lot of access to executives?
Okay.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Maybe an association of executives.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Right.
So that would be an area where you would really want to spend your time developing relationships, because that organization and individuals in that organization have access to the people that you want.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it's something I actually work on and teach my clients when I'm helping them with optimizing their LinkedIn profiles, their personal profiles, so that they're using their personal profile platform to connect people, to build their thought leadership, etc. Is to just Google associations. That you just, people just don't think of that, because you can actually find people right there, and then those people, you could go into LinkedIn and pick the people like that you've seen on the Google research that might make sense for you to reach out to on LinkedIn, and then you can add a personal note, and so then you can say, I was just looking up people who are in your field of expertise on LinkedIn, and would love to connect with you so I can follow your content and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taking action. It's not just the introduction. It's got to go a little bit deeper than that.
And this is something I've done so naturally, because this is my background. My background is in sales and strategic partnerships. And this is strategic partnerships. And this is how I built my first business, my second business. And it really does work. And I think that here's a couple things that come out of this. One, it takes you to the next level of your networking. So if you're somebody who's putting yourself out there and not seeing results, you got to ask if you're spending your time with the right people. Okay.
Correct.
So this is the next level of the right person.
Right.
And then when you develop a strategic partnership, you need to be able to go back to what you and I were talking about when we started, which is clarity on your goal. Because our ability to ask really clearly for what we want is the important part of leveraging that strategic partnership. And most people don't know how to do this. And by the way, this applies to virtual networking or any networking in general.
Absolutely. It's not even that some people don't even know how to do it. Some of them are just afraid to do it.
I love that you said that, because I'll go one layer deeper, especially women.
Yeah,
women are afraid to ask for help. Yeah.
And I think, I do it. You know what? And I've been in business for a very long time, and I've been in a lot of different sectors. I mean, I've been in PR, for God's sake. You'd think that, and because I'm a bit of an extrovert, you'd think that it would just really come naturally to me. And it doesn't, because I still have all this little self-talk that goes on in the middle of something like, oh, I don't want to bother them, or oh, this or oh, that. But you've got to get over it. And you've got to figure out, again, be prepared when you're going to a conference or something like that, or you're going to a luncheon of some kind, or you're going to BNI or eWomen Network, ANEs or whatever, be prepared so that you can sort of feel like you've got your talking point in your back pocket. And then think about the things that, a lot of times people in this day and age, which I love, and I think women are very good at this, is they'll say, well, who's an ideal referral for you? And I don't think people expect that to be asked of them. They're like, oh, and then they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So, have these things in your back pocket, have them prepared, really kind of have this figured out, so that when somebody asks you a question like that, you're going to get some leverage. Yeah.
I think that it's all in the preparation and being strategic about it. It really is. And that's when just going back to when it comes to in person, I think you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah, right.
This is also a big differentiator, because you can adjust on the fly, right? Or you walk over to somebody and you're like, no, I guess not. And then you can walk over to someone else. But when you're virtual, you don't have that luxury. And so you definitely need to have, I think, the powers and the preparation.
You know what just made me think of something, being in person?
Yeah.
I think there's also people who are new to this, and I think this is a very simple thing, but I think we should address it in just in a minute or two, is the use of business cards in networking. I think a lot of people think that they go meet somebody and they shove a business card in your face. I'm not one of those people. I actually prefer to have that conversation, build some rapport. And most of the time, if people want to continue that conversation or connect with you on LinkedIn or follow up with a phone call afterwards, can I have your business card? So do you have any comments about that? Because I do think that's something that just really requires tact.
I do have some thoughts about it. My thoughts are, and again, I know we're focusing on virtual, and it really is the same thing. I don't mind sharing my information with anybody, but when I'm connecting with somebody, what I'm looking for is to connect with them. I want to learn more about who they are and to see if there's an alignment energetically, alignment in our values, and if there's somebody that I feel that we could go a next step deeper together. That and only that is when I might ask for their information.
Right. Right.
And that goes back to the point of everybody's just not for me. And
Right.
I really am a value-centered person, and I live and run my businesses that way. So if I don't ask you for your business card, don't be offended. I just don't believe that there's a next layer deeper for me to offer you.
Right.
Or I don't feel we're aligned at this time.
The other thing that to take this to like an energetic level about that is that, it's funny when you start to realize who are the people that you need to be connected with for the right reasons. It's not because you're being rude. It's not because you don't care. More of the right people are going to start showing up because you've shifted your thinking and you know more about what sort of the persona is of that person that you want to meet.
Well, and you're making space for them. If you're just busy running around, handing your business card out to as many people as possible, then the opportunity will just walk right by you and you won't be able to see it.
Exactly.
So the key is, and I get on the phone every day, all day with women in C-suite and CEOs, and I don't talk anything about their credentials or their business or their target client. We just talk about who we are.
Yes, exactly. It's interesting. I've listened to, several episodes of your podcast. I think what I love the most about these women that are in the C-suite that you just referred to is, I think sometimes we have this feeling that these people are so high up that everything for them must be perfect, or everything's always going their way, or that they don't ever have imposter syndrome, or they don't ever have self-doubt, or is there anything that really keeps them up at night? And every single guest you've had on your show, at least I haven't listened to them all yet, has shared that like they've really kind of like peeled back their layers and said, you know what, I have just as much self-doubt and stuff as you do. I mean, everybody handles it differently and everybody copes with it differently. But I think that's something we all need to realize is that these high-level C-suite people or these high fee kind of coaches and stuff like that, or people who are sort of celebrities online, they all are trying to figure it out just like we are.
Yeah, I can't speak to all of those audiences, but I can speak to mine, which is what I've heard the women say over and over and over again now. So I'm 99% confident.
Yeah,
is that of course they have it, but they've gone to the mental gym, they've worked on this, and they are now able to recognize it inside of themselves and have created ways to move themselves out of it quicker.
Yes.
Where it can be, when you talk to a young woman or inexperienced entrepreneur, this could debilitate them for a month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
But those times now are fewer and further between. And if they hit, they go away much faster.
I can't think of who. If it comes to me, I'll share it back in the comments. But one interview specifically, the woman talked about, I think it was Chinwe SMI. She talked about as soon as she walks out of the room, they do a debrief. And what she meant by that wasn't a debrief on just the content of the meeting, but the mindset of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll bet that's something women do more of just because of the way we're wired.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can you imagine how powerful it would be to have a woman leader and that be your leader and have them walk you through that? I think that's amazing.
So back to the virtual networking thing again.
Yes.
I know. Well, that's what's fun about an interview. That's okay to go off a little bit. It's part of what makes it interesting. If I just sat here and in a very rote way asked question after question, let you answer it and just keep going to the next question, it'd be pretty boring. And I don't think anybody would be listening. So,
plus you're asking me about my favorite stuff.
I know. So, and we are still having coffee, except I think my coffee's now cold, but that's okay.
Mine too. That's okay.
So let's talk about the tools for organizing, implementing the tools.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's the key. I don't know if I have all the tools, but first of all, I just want to put some space around the fact that you need to have a system to organize this. Okay. Now it could be really complex CRM and something fancy, but I don't believe that that has to be the case, because for most people, they're doing nothing. They're doing, I'll just say that again, they're networking, connecting, they're getting all the business cards, to your point, and they're doing nothing with the information. And so that's going to be a really big problem, because if you're going to take the time to invest in creating an opportunity for a relationship, you need to have a system or a process to make sure that you don't allow that to fall out of your point of view and go nowhere, because it really is up to you to get out of it what you would desire. So on a very complex end, you could have there's all kinds of CRM types of, I don't even know, like we could come up with a few, but let's go on a simple end, because I think that's where people need to start.
Yes.
Is just, how about putting anybody you network and connect with, regardless of what it could be? Is it going to be someone you're going to have a partnership with? Are you going to co-write an article? Do they have a speaking opportunity for you? Are they a potential client? It doesn't matter. But one very simple thing you can do is just put them into one of three buckets. I want to connect with them every month. I want to connect with them once a quarter, or I want to connect with them twice a year.
Would you just say, like, plop it in your calendar?
You could set up reminders. You could set up reminders for that person, right? Okay. Plop it into your calendar. You could use a project management tool to set up an automated task in something like Asana.
Yep.
Or you could go all the way to the CRMs, the Pipeleys and all that stuff, and set up complex sales funnel management. But I just think that sounds overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you're doing nothing, to go all the way to that is, it can really be as easy as, gosh, how powerful of a connection did I have today with Kate? Do I want to follow up with her in a month, in a quarter, or in about 6 months? Excellent.
People always want to know about tools.
Yeah, I know.
It's amazing. People are always like, well, what? It's like they just want it. Well, tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah. And here's what I want anyone who's listening to this to take away. The power is in the process. It's not in the doing. And I've had to learn this the hard way a few times. The power is in the process. So you're going to be much more successful if you systematize the connections you make than if you make 10 times the connections.
Right. Yep. I love that. The power is in the process.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. So let's, we're at about 3:40. So I think we'll go for a few more minutes if you have a little bit more time.
Sure.
So let's talk about content and your digital footprint. This is one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, that's why I added it as a point, because there's something new that's percolating in my mind around this with regards to networking, and specifically then virtual networking. The reason that this popped into my mind is because I was listening to an executive talk about the fact that now that we're all, homebound for a while and literally having to do business virtually, mm-hmm. he was not going to not hire the leadership team member that he needed, but that he was doing a few things differently, which was checking out the digital footprint of the candidates. And he said, yeah, you might be thinking I'm going on LinkedIn, looking at their credentials, but he said it has nothing to do with credentialing. I'm looking to see if they've written any content, like articles in the media, articles on LinkedIn, what kind of content they're engaging in, to get a better sense of who they are.
Right.
And that comment made my bells go off around virtual networking, because how cool is it that we can create content and put it out there, and we can curate that content around topics associated with potentially people or opportunities we want to create for ourselves. So
right.
If you're, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Can you think of an example?
Yeah. So let's say you want a corporate board position. We were just talking about this. I was in a training last week. A corporate board position, and you want to get a corporate board seat in the telecommunications industry and you're a blockchain technology expert. Well, guess what? You could be writing content about blockchain technology as it relates to telecommunications and pulling in other pieces of content from companies and marrying the two. Do you think
Wow.
you would get attention from those organizations and employees and leaders and board members at those companies? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, you would.
And ATN just popped in and said, like, wow. I mean, that is a big wow. Maybe repeat that. Like, make that, re-emphasize that. I'm serious.
Like,
That's
say that
really
again.
Yeah, just the cliff notes.
Yeah, the cliff notes. You want a board seat. You are a blockchain expert, blockchain technology expert, and you want to get a board seat at a telecommunications company in that industry.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do anything. LinkedIn provides the platform. You write an article on LinkedIn highlighting your expertise in blockchain and relating it to companies that you're targeting or industry related articles and content, and marry the two.
Yes.
To get the attention of the people that you want to network and connect with.
Because guess what those people are doing? If they're looking for somebody on the board, well, they're also searching for people. They're typing things into Google or LinkedIn search, looking for people like you. And if you have published a LinkedIn article like you suggested, that actually Google sees that as a search engine optimization, as SEO. Your content is likely to pop up in that search.
I'll give you another example, really a real life one that's happened for me over and over again. I interview an amazing woman on my podcast. She shares the content on LinkedIn, and a bunch of people in her network start commenting. Well, I can go over there and engage with those people. And I've engaged with some of them and went and read their profile and said, wow, they would be another amazing woman to be on my show. And it was an easy yes, because they had already listened to the interview with the other leader.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Boom.
So this is really, now the topic is virtual networking. This is really the power here. Yes. This is the power.
It is. Absolutely.
We've given you like the foundational stuff, because once you get the connection, you got to do what's right with it. But the power of virtual networking, I think, is in the content.
I just kind of want to reiterate, like, let's just kind of go back to like how you and I met. I mean, we live in the same town in Vermont, but we didn't know each other. You'd lived here for 2 or 3 years. I lived here all my life. I never knew of you. But, and then when you got interested in the eWomen network and wanted to establish a chapter in Vermont, what was the first thing you did? And where did you go?
I knew 2 women in business, and I knew that I needed to get out there and network and connect with other women, but my time was really limited, especially in rural Vermont. We have a lot of driving time. So the first thing I did is I went into LinkedIn, and I did a search around the Burlington area. And then I started looking at the titles and profiles of the women that I wanted to meet and connect with, and sent them messages. And that's how I met all of you.
Right. And then
virtual networking.
You created a chapter of an organization that's a 20-year-old organization that has over 500,000 members and has 120 chapters throughout the US and some places around the world. And so now you created a network of like a local global connection.
Yep.
And so a lot of and actually what's just as a sidebar is that, eWomen has normally been an in-person kind of networking event. They've just pivoted throughout this whole thing and have really become almost a completely virtual networking organization, which is really pretty phenomenal. So I think that this whole COVID thing has forced a lot of businesses and a lot of people to really see the power here. I mean, yes, probably we're all got massive Zoom fatigue right now, but things will level off eventually. But to be able to know how to do this both online and off is really, really critical. You also mentioned the term, which is one of my favorite terms, your digital footprint.
I wanted to go back to that too. I wanted to not shy over that, because how you show up matters. And your digital footprint is a really big part of it. And so besides the content that you're putting out there or engaging with, how, like the outfit you put on, what comes up when somebody searches your name is a critical component to, first of all, people finding you. And Kate, I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit more on the keyword part. How do people find you? And then once they do, what do they see?
Right. Well, I always tell everybody your digital footprint from a biographical professional standpoint really lives on LinkedIn, and it's the only online platform where that happens, period.
You wouldn't go to an in-person networking event or conference or workshop naked. So why in the HELL would you do it online? Because that's what's happening.
Right. Yep. It's true.
Yeah.
And I also say, like your digital footprint lives online, but remember too, that when people search for you, I mean, whether they're going to have a Zoom meeting with you, a virtual coffee, or when we get back to being able to get out and about, whether they're going to meet you at a conference or something like that, or they've read your blog and they just want to learn about you. If they go over to Google and just type your name and you have a LinkedIn profile, the very first thing that shows up on the first page of Google is your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
And so make sure that your digital footprint is really robust, because you're doing yourself a disservice if it's outdated, or if it's not complete, or it's not using keywords, which are the keywords that apply to your skill sets in your industry. It's not hard to figure out what some of those terms are, because remember, if people don't know your name, that they're searching for somebody like you in your industry online too.
Yeah.
So, wow, we've covered a lot.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I want to thank you for being here. But before we close out, I would like you to let people know how they can find your podcast. I was going to create a banner. What is the URL of your podcast?
Well, you can just go to shestalkingback.com and you'll be directed to the show page.
Shestalkingback.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
The show is hosted by Evolutionize Media, but it has its own domain. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
She's talking back.
Just take a minute to also explain that not only is this about your podcast, but you're also created a network for people who might be considering wanting to create their own podcasts, and that's something that you work on with people. So
yeah, I've really what I've done is I've been able to leverage my strategic brain and my business experience and my love for podcasting to help entrepreneurs and organizations create podcast channels for their businesses to basically help up-level their overall digital marketing presence and strategy, right?
And you walk them through soup to nuts on how to do it, right?
Yep. I've done some consulting for organizations. My Evolutionize Media, my company, actually is helping to create the strategy, the go-to-market strategy, the launch planning, and then also does the production of the show on the back end.
Cool. Well, it's really great. And how else can we find you too? I've already put up your LinkedIn. People can connect with you there. What other ways are people could connect with you?
No, I think that's the best place. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn. Sure, you can search me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, but really where I spend my time is on LinkedIn, and I'm very active there, and I love to engage in conversation. I'm totally the kind of person you can approach and reach out if you want to get in touch. Thank you very much. I'm honored to have you here, and I thank you for making the time. And both Michelle and I at some point will pop in sooner than later to take a look at any comments and questions, and we'll get back to you there. And Etienne just said, she's talking back. Woot, woot. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Michelle. Bye-bye.